Okay, Tanya.
Right.
Return was 110, right?
Yep. Commissioners, we are live and back to your work session. So back to you, Madam Chair.
My computer's still saying it's 108 from my
I
network.
thought we said 105.
Oh,
It's okay, I'm early.
I
Well, but-
heard the same message as you, Commissioner Treese. I heard 105.
well, I'm 5 minutes tardy. Thanks for being on time.
We're going to take it out of you too. You watch.
So before we talk about the transit investment initiatives, so Governor Brown issued another executive order dealing with this health emergency. So no, I don't have the same authorities as Multnomah County Commission Chair Deborah Kafori. So no, I can't just issue an executive order to leave Washington County public buildings, certain Washington County public buildings open 24/7 during a 4-day heat wave. Instead, Ms. Angie, can you please help us work with the emergency manager for Washington County and find out where in Washington County there will be some 24-hour-a-day cooling centers for people to stay over this 4-day heat wave?
So Chair Harrington, it seems like that would be a prompted question, but I rest assured to anyone viewing that was not prompted.
No, totally not.
And I just want to say, I think we're all just trying to do
questions. Yeah.
So this goes in the category of we're doing the best we can. So we have received a request to also help support. This goes to the overnight cooling ER discharge patients from regional hospitals. And so more to come. We're brainstorming what is the right approach. Our current funding model with Wingspan is we do need to pay for the cost of Wingspan. So I can honestly say we are working on it. And that is the information I have at this point. By the end of the day, the board will receive another update.
Okay, for those folks who've lived here longer than me, and I've lived here for 31 years, this is our third heat wave so far. And we haven't gotten to the end of September yet.
Totally unprecedented. Been here my whole life. I remember days in excess of 105 when I was or 100 and when I was in grade school, but never more than like 104 and only for a couple days during the summer. So and I'm sure that that's substantiated by professionals. It's only my personal accounting.
Well, I ate my lunch really fast. Hopefully I'm not wearing it. So the 2020s are certainly proving to be interesting. So Mother Nature, please don't throw anything else at us. We could use a break. Alrighty, thanks, Ms. Angie, for giving us a brief update on that. Yes, we are living in interesting times. So onward ho we go into topic number 4, overview of transit improvement initiatives in Washington County. Hello, Mr. Roberts. Thank you. We'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This afternoon, Chris is actually going to walk us through a presentation to talk about some different transit-related initiatives that you've probably, some of which I know you'll have heard of, some of which you will definitely be hearing more about in the coming months. So we just wanted to kind of walk through these all at one time, just to give a little sense and context for all these different initiatives, a little bit about how they fit together, how they sequence temporally, and then opportunities for public and board member engagement along the way in these efforts. So I think with that, I'll ask Chris to go ahead and walk us through it. And I do want to acknowledge too, we have Aaron Wardell and Diami Valentine from our Long Range Transportation Planning Group on as well, if there are some questions and things that they can help us address as well. Let's see, are you there, Chris? Okay, well, maybe we can go to the next slide. I'll try to kick us off here. So
oh, wait, I'm here. I'm here. I just thought I was mute. I thought I was already unmuted. Sorry, I'm here.
Right.
After
Please
how
take it
long?
away.
Year and a half, we still make a mistake. Okay, thanks, Stephen, for the introduction. So yes, today is a little bit of an unusual presentation. It's like the trailer. I mean, it's just like preview of what's coming. And it just feels like there's a lot coming that really, if we can, our goal is to just clarify the purpose of the different initiatives that are coming underway or coming soon, and identify in advance the board role, expectations, and participation opportunities, and then just answer any questions and provide any additional information we can at this early point. So next slide. So I think the first one thing to say is that all of these initiatives that we're talking about are in the long range plan work program. So there's really no surprises. It's just that they're all moving forward now in the next sort of 2-year time period. And I'm going to cover today a recap of the Washington County Transit Development Plan. I'm going to talk about the new study that is county-led that will be kicking off in partnership with other cities and agency partners, called the Countywide Transit Study. The Westside Multimodal Improvement Study, which we used to call the US 26 Corridor Study. And then the next iteration of the TV highway work, which is funded from a HOPE grant, which stands for Helping Obtain Prosperity for Everyone. And then a new effort by TriMet looking at revisiting the transit-oriented development plans along the Red Line stations in coordination with that service expansion. So those are the 5 that I'm going to cover. And you can see they start, some of them start fall, but they're all going to be moving forward, kind of overlapping. Next slide. So the first one is, I think it's kind of the easy one, because you just approved the first transit development plan earlier this year in February. This is the one that's required by the statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, or STIF, regulations, to be eligible for public transit funding that was provided through House Bill 2017. And this plan identifies the transit priorities for each biennium and for longer term needs. And it is developed with input from the County Transit Advisory Committee, which you appointed as a board, and Chair Harrington served as the chair for, along with public input. And our first ever transit development plan was adopted in February 2021, and it set out the priorities for the next state biennium of 2021-22 and 22-23. So we're in 2022, we'll start up again and update this transit development plan for the next 2 biennium of the 23-25. And we would be seeking board action later in 2025. And the reason that we just wanted to be, so there isn't confusion between these various efforts, we just wanted to remind you about what the transit development plan is. And just a note that in the next version of this plan, we anticipate having more attention on the last mile analysis and the shuttle analysis, because there's such an interest in having, everyone kind of wants their own shuttle. So there will be, we'll be wanting to queue up our priorities for that. And just a reminder, the recommendations from the County's Transit Advisory Committee and our plan all go back to the to TriMet, who is the umbrella, the organization for all the transit districts for under this statewide transportation improvement fund. And so that will go back to the TriMet calls it their House Bill 2017 Transit Advisory Committee. And this is the one which earlier in the year you appointed Commissioner Fye to serve on. So that's just kind of a reminder of that ongoing work. Okay, so the next one is a new effort. And it's really to develop a vision or a concept. The study would develop a vision or a concept for transit priorities countywide. And, you know, one thing we have learned is that we need to have a voice at the regional table for priorities and better understand what to ask for from TriMet or what to seek other funding for. So really the objective is to define this collective vision of our transit priorities and identify models that we can use to increase transit ridership countywide. So this work would also be a place where we can do some of that first last mile analysis that then feeds into our transit development plan and seeks additional funding from TriMet from their share of the STIF funds. It would also identify what we call enhanced transit corridors. These are places where there's an emphasis to invest in speed and reliability improvements for buses and access to the bus stops. And this is also a kind of a footnote, but this is also important because we have an opportunity here to leverage funding available through Metro and TriMet for funding some of these investments. This work would also inform an update that TriMet plans to do for their service enhancement plans. These are the plans that TriMet draws down from when they make their service changes each year. So if you want a bus or a bus route in the TriMet district, it needs to be listed in this service enhancement plan. Think of it as their master plan. And also then improvements or transit priorities can also feed into the next regional transportation plan, which is again is an important place to be for priority for funding. Then also the countywide transit study will take a look at some of the local land use actions and policies that jurisdictions can take to help support ridership. And I think your board has already done some of that with changing the parking requirements a year ago or so along frequent bus routes, for example. Okay, so this next slide is just, this will be county led, and Diami will be project manager in Aaron's group. And it'll be led with our partners. We are seeking funding. Beaverton and Hillsborough and Tualatin and TriMet have already offered up funding, and we are waiting on a couple other cities. And so we will be bringing a IGA to you to approve for accepting the funding for this work. We also are available, and Aaron and Diami are on the line to come back to you to review the scope in more detail if you would like. But of course, there will be opportunities, and it'll be important to hear from you throughout the study on needs and priorities through this study process. This will also be an opportunity to bring this work back to the county's Transit Advisory Committee and also to the Washington County Coordinating Committee because of the work countywide. And the public engagement process, there will also be opportunities to participate in that as we begin the visiting of what the priorities are. So this study is a long time in coming. It's been in the work plan for several years. And I have to say, we were going to do it 4 years ago, and then HB 2017 came and we had to deal with all the STIF process, and then we thought we were done, and then we spent a lot of time on the Get Moving measure. So hopefully we have a breather here to pull people together to focus on this. And it really does respond to the requests we've heard from the public for years about additional transit service and trying to move that needle on the mode share to see what can be done to increase the transit share.
And Chris, do you want to talk about the role of the County Transit Advisory Committee on this too?
Yeah, it would come through the recommendations from this, particularly those that would require STIF funding would be coming through the County Transit Advisory Committee. Yeah, so there, and yeah. So those two are county led. Before I move on to the ones that are partner led, are there any questions on these two?
Go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
Yeah, just a quick question, Chris, on, we've always talked about our public transit, I guess, primarily our TriMet bus routes and activity as compared to Multnomah County, and, are we getting our money's worth that we contribute to public transit versus service in Washington County? And I think that's a foregone conclusion that we don't. But how does our public transit ridership, and first question I guess is, does that include MAX and buses? And secondly, how does our bus ridership compare with the other two counties? Do we know those numbers? And I don't expect you to know those off the top of your head, but that would be interesting to me when we're talking about a countywide transit study, just to see where we are in there.
Yeah, that's the kind of information that we'll be able to pull together. We started doing this some time ago when we thought we were going to have time to work on this, and found that there were several routes within Washington County, many in fact, that qualified by TriMet's definition for frequent service. They passed the number of boarding rides per hour, whatever that definition was. So there is ridership there. And we also know clearly the relationship between improved frequency and growing transit ridership. So there is demand there, and it potentially could grow. How it compares, I think I don't have that answer. It's some things we can look at.
Well, yeah, and I don't even know if that's pertinent. It's just, and then I guess, I'll ask the question before Nafisa gets to it, is certainly how does our ridership and how does our service, I guess, meet the needs of our low-income neighborhoods, and certainly the equity that needs to overlay the entire system. So that'd be interesting information.
I think that this will be a really important part of this work. And when the STIF funding first became available, we tried to make that case. It was really hard to get those voices to come downtown Portland to testify. And I think we're just in a better position to be able to have those voices at the table now than we were 5 years ago.
So I just want to clarify that, Commissioner Willie, you were talking about the fact that Washington County provides more funds to TriMet. I assume that you mean that through the employer excise tax. Okay, not the county itself. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the TriMet tax that we pay with our business income taxes, and so that's the tax I was referring to.
Employer tax.
So there's the payroll tax, but that now there's also the employee tax.
Yeah, those two.
Yeah,
and I just want
to TriMet's funded 65% by the employer excise tax, and I think that's what our Washington County piece of that employer tax is larger than the other counties, and I believe that's what Jerry was saying, Commissioner Willie was saying. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
As one reason why the extension of the red line, and so he's asked for some great information, and some of it's been buried in the 5-year transit improvement plan that TriMet puts in. But very good point made that the need exists in Washington County, and the pinch continues to be the funding to implement to the level needed.
Yeah, the county grew so fast.
Yeah, and I was just going to
the
add,
service did not keep up.
Yeah, I was just going to add too. I think those are prescient questions from Commissioner Willie. I mean, I think those are all the things that we're going to be struggling for. And as Chris said, we think it's really important that we get aligned on the west side in terms of what our shared collective priorities are for additional service out here. And so if we're able to speak with one voice and have a cogent strategy and an action plan, if you will, for what we're looking for, I think that puts us in a really good position moving forward.
And I want to emphasize that we do this in partnership with TriMet. They're actually seeing this as an opportunity. They know they want to update their service enhancement plans, and so we'll be working closely with TriMet on this.
So I'd like to add too that many of our cities have done extensive land use development, not just land use planning.
Yeah.
You know, the city of Hillsborough, decades ago, with the introduction of the red line, they followed up. They put all the zoning in place. Development has happened. Now, Tigard has done a marvelous job with the Tigard Triangle with their downtown. Beaverton has done work. Hillsborough's continued to do additional work. And even Sherwood's done work. So we need to ensure that the strong story is being told about how these suburban communities have advanced and evolved. So one of the questions I have is on the structure of this. I see a technical advisory committee, but we need to make sure that there is engagement through all the elected levels, and that includes through all the city councils as well. Because of the work that those city councils have made over the last decade, and where their community visions are now and looking into the future, and harnessing the community will about continuing to address climate challenges through improved public transit utilization. And I know we've done all that planning with the climate smart strategy. So I'm kind of anxious to move from planning to actually seeing some additional service here in Washington County, but I know we have to come up with a better plan. Okay.
Yeah. I those are all really good points. Yes, for sure. And I know telling the story about the needs in Washington County and about the transformation. As a little aside, I keep pointing to people to what used to be the Kmart site at Murray and TV Highway, just as an example of how things are changing.
Yeah, the West End. That's right. Yeah. Commissioner Treese and Commissioner Fide, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Nope. Okay, well, it sounds like we're all ready to go into the next three, Chris.
Okay, all right. The next three are studies led by our partners, of which we will play an important role. So the first one up is the Westside Multimodal Improvement Study. And we just call this US 26 quarter study, but it's the same thing. So you'll remember, I think, that in 2019, Governor Brown directed ODOT to conduct a study. She asked for $1 million study. She didn't give the money. She said, use your $1 million and study the needs in this corridor. And we have a letter from both Chair Harrington and the Mayor of Hillsborough, each agreeing to contribute $100,000. So this, the need for a study was included in the Get Moving measure. It didn't pass, but it got a little bit of discussion at that time. This study will be led by ODOT in partnership with Metro. It'll be led out of the Office of Urban Mobility, the new office at ODOT. And partners so far include TriMet, of course, Beaverton, Hillsborough, Port of Portland, and ODOT and Metro are continuing to talk with City of Portland and Multnomah County. I think everyone knows about the travel that diverts through Multnomah County and City of Portland, all due to the backups on 26. So this study, the study area, I guess, if you show the next slide, is really basically the tunnel through Cornelius Pass Road. And this is an area that ODOT outlined as a proposed study area. It's not written in stone, but it just shows that it's not just the highway itself, it's the areas impacted by the traffic diversion in the both on either north and south of Highway 26, but it connects back up to show the, and it's not, I say the tunnel as an abbreviation for really the junction with 405. Next slide. So board input, some of the board role and staffing on this. So first of all, because of the county contributing $100,000, we have invited lead staff, Mandy Putney and Malou Wilkinson from ODOT and Metro to come talk to you on September 14th and go into more detail on the study and give you an opportunity to express hopes or concerns or what you'd really like to see in this study. And that's intentional to be a preview prior to taking an intergovernmental agreement to you to contribute the $100,000 to the study. The study will be forming a steering committee, and this steering committee is going to start later in 2021. It will be a steering committee of elected officials, and there will be two Metro councilors who will also have also expressed interest in participating. So this will be coming up soon in terms of request for participation on this study. Because you know what, it's August and it feels like we're heading to the end of 2021 already. So there will be opportunity that you will have to provide input at your meetings throughout this process. And as this really gets going, we'll be able to identify those key milestones and input process.
So,
Trees?
I'm sorry. Thank you. Chair. Chris, what counselors are from Metro are going to be involved?
I believe I was told, I don't think it's written down yet, but that Lynn Peterson wanted to participate and Juan Carlos Gonzalez.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I think there will be in addition to the elected official group, there will be a staffing of project management committee and multi-jurisdictional agency committee. And if you're familiar with the structure of Southwest Corridor, it's kind of like that. There'll be a elected project management and more technical staff. I think Commissioner Willie, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, just following up on Pam's question. So how many county commissioners what's going to be the mix of this elected officials on this? Because as you know, we commissioned this study back in 2016 and wrapped it up in early 2017. And then now, but that was a little broader issue than certainly just the Sunset Corridor. So what's this look like from a makeup of both electeds and citizen participation?
I think that's what is being worked out right now. They're thinking through that right now, ODOT and Metro are, which is why I think it's a good opportunity to have them come and share where they are in the process and have an opportunity for you to provide input.
Well, you have four different commissioners whose area includes this target area.
Could I see the map one more time? Because it looked like a lot like the District 2 map. just saying.
It does. It clearly impacts the whole county.
Yeah, it does. It does. I really want to make sure, as Catherine said, there are four commissioners that have been involved in this, and this is something that correct me if I'm wrong, but it started on the west side, and it was Hillsborough that started this discussion. So, I mean, I really do believe that we all need to make sure that there's representation here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we chat a little bit more about this?
Mhm.
So I want to make sure that the city of Beaverton has area both to the south of Highway 26, to the north of Highway 26, east and west of 217. And so I'm totally open to ensuring that our county commissioners making room for 2 district commissioners, specifically towards, making sure that the roadway connectivity is in place and transit improvements are made. So I don't need to be part of that mix, is what I'm coming to thinking out loud, based upon ensuring that our commission representatives are very proactive with us, talking about the project, conversing with us, and so forth. So, but I want to make sure that we're able to rely upon the elected officials at the city of Beaverton to do their part in participating as well. And I have every reason to believe that that's the case, but I wanted to make sure I brought voice to it today.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Chris.
Commissioner Willie.
Yeah, a different question. And also a part of our study that we did, that both Pam and I actually had sat on that committee. We discovered that it was, if we would open up Cornelius Pass as the north-south, 70% of the truck travel on Sunset Highway would be diverted to a Cornelius Pass. Would that expand this study, take it kind of out of its intended purpose and make that too broad? Because Cornelius Pass is a integral route, especially for truck traffic, and we know how much issue that causes in the wintertime, especially. So just a question.
Yeah, I think the first part of the study is going to focus on getting agreement on the problems. And that is clearly a problem. I mean, I haven't driven it since the new safety improvements were made, but I don't know how much safer it feels driving that route with all the trucks. And we all notice that when that road's closed, it just nudges over the volumes on 26 enough to cause, it's very fragile. And it causes
Havoc.
backups.
I'll volunteer the word havoc.
So yeah, no. So I think that pulling that in and recognizing the role of that road as part of the problem statement, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, thanks.
So that'll be interesting. Okay, and then I think next we can go back to
Chris.
Oh, right.
So just before we move on, I wanted to note that I think we've listed this as a transit-related initiative, and so I think clearly the implication here is that transit will be a big part of whatever recommendations will likely come out of this study as well. So I just want to reiterate that point as
and I think that there has been, as you know, I think you saw that the first pilot bus on shoulder is starting between Twelton and Wilsonville, and it's going to use the smart buses. And the next one that's getting queued up is 205. And so we can expect to look at bus on shoulder in this route. You got to get on and off the freeway. So there'll be some looking, there'll be the whole park and ride question, but that's one option that we're pretty sure will be looked at. So I think it'll be an opportunity to really define the problems and just see what ranges, how far can you get with some of these options that are floating around. $1 million, unfortunately, doesn't go as far as you might think.
And please make sure people get briefed on the latest update on the Sunset Town Center. Center.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, I see that breaking ground to the town center of the transit center area. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good point. All right. I think we are moving on to back to TV Highway. So this one is a federal grant. This one, it will be led by Metro in partnership with TriMet. It's a federal grant called from FTA called Helping Obtain Prosperity for Everyone, or HOPE grant. We actually submitted a letter of support for it. And its purpose is to really address transportation challenges faced by areas of persistent poverty. It will be the same gang of folks that have been working together for years now: Beaverton, Hillsborough, Cornelius, Forest Grove, TriMet, the county, and I think I left off ODOT, but clearly ODOT is a key player on this. So the study area on the next slide is going to look at the full 19 miles between the junction with 26 on the east end and coming into Forest Grove on the west end. And that little dash line, if you wonder what that is, that's the Council Creek Trail.
Chris, can you, this is not to be confused with the TV Highway project dollars from 185th UUA all the way west through Hillsborough, Cornelius, and Forest Grove, right? The dollars that where we just had the tour with Congresswoman Bonamici.
Yes. Okay. It fits together. It fits together.
Well, that's where I thought I knew what this was, and then
Yeah.
once you put the map up, I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. So
now I confused myself.
Right. So,
Too many TV highways.
yeah, I know. There are too many TV highways. I know. Wait till you see the list in the next slide.
I was going to use the analogy. We're building a multi-layered cake here.
Yeah. So why don't you go to the next slide and I'll clarify that. So this study will focus on the transit planning. It'll further the bus rapid transit concept that was developed in that we really, Erin and Giami's team really led on for the Get Moving measure for TV Highway. And that bus rapid transit went from the Beaverton Transit Center to Forest Grove. And there'll be an additional part of this study that will look at electric transit vehicles. And I think this will play into address some of the questions TriMet's dealing with now about how they operationalize an electric vehicle fleet and what investments they need for that as well. So back to, you may remember that for the Get Moving measure, we sorted out the transit piece from the safety pieces. And there will never be enough funding from FTA to fix all of TV Highway. So we know that while we could seek funding for transit improvements, we are still going to need a lot of other funding for all the lighting that we sought for that earmark. Only we don't call it earmarks. And the safety, the crossings, and other sort of safety access to transit projects. So we know that one FTA grant won't meet all of the needs of the highway. So we will need to continue to work with ODOT and seek other funding for other improvements on the road. So that's how they fit together. The other big part of this work is that Metro will lead a equitable development strategy for this corridor. It'll be modeled after what they did in Southwest for the Southwest corridor, Southwest Equitable Development Strategy. And the purpose of this is to really make sure communities' economic and housing development needs are reflected in any planning, and to create a coalition of advocates, community representatives, and others to participate in the ongoing corridor discussions and really ensure that the existing community and low-income residents' needs are integrated in the planning. This is a big lift given the size of the corridor, and we've had several meetings with Metro staff about how they're going to handle this. And I think I covered this later, but I just want to say that this is one of those multidisciplinary efforts. And I know Matt Craigie, we've already brought him in with the ARPA funding you guys talked about this morning. There's just going to be a lot of engagement with these communities and some need for coordination. So we're aware of that. And Metro's aware of that, and they're trying to figure out how to do that. One more slide. This, if it feels like we've been here before, there have been many studies along the way. The Low Reedville Community Plan, which really triggered a great deal of engagement with the community and identify community needs. The TV Highway Corridor Plan, which happened about the same time on transportation needs at the same time. The Aloha Tomorrow work, which took some of those recommendations and carried them forward, particularly for the changes in some of the land use side. And then the Moving Forward TV Highway study, which really developed transit concepts through the unincorporated county area. And then with the additional funding we're able to get from Metro, develop that transit concept for the length of the corridor to submit for the Get Moving 2020 measure. And it looks like a lot, but this does not include the work that Cornelius has been doing on TV Highway. Forest Grove has a corridor plan. These are areas that have been growing quite a bit along either side of TV Highway. And of course, Beaverton and the Canyon Road section has years of planning along this stretch of the road. So when we say TV Highway, we assume it also means Canyon Road. It's a kind of an abbreviation. So I think one of the important points, and I know that Metro and TriMet are really aware of this, is that we are building on the work that's been done before and not starting from scratch. So,
but
yeah.
Whew,
Yeah.
Given, so with the grant, there are specific questions that are included in that grant and or needs to be studied, and a long area. So I want to make sure that as we proceed and participate, that there's that we've been really judicious about sharing with all of us at both the elected level and the staff level of what the grant was able to secure. And I'm hoping your grant applications usually do define what the desired outcomes are. You know, okay, so you call them deliverables. But I think we need to be cognizant of that because it can only do so much. And I love how you're reminding us that there are different pieces to the puzzle, and that this plan will tie those applicable pieces together over that full extent. I just can't tell right now if it's a 25-piece puzzle or a 2,500-piece puzzle. But I know I'll get there. I know I'll get there.
I don't really tackle puzzles bigger than 1,500 pieces.
Thank you.
In the next slide, I think sort of talks about that a little bit. In terms of the board role, there will be a steering committee of elected officials, and I believe the grant application commits to having that be with community leaders as well. So it'd be a blend for the community. And the grant, in terms of a deliverable, actually calls for seeking an endorsement of a locally preferred alternative to seek FTA funding for by the end of 2023. So that is ambitious. It also sets if that's the end goal, then that sets aside a series of steps that FTA requires you to go through in terms of identifying a problem and a purpose and needs statement and defining alternatives. So this will chart a familiar course And I think one of the challenges in terms of putting the puzzle pieces together is that we've recognized that we're in for a long haul in incrementally improving the safety, making those other improvements we need on TV highway, absent a large chunk of funding. And so trying to move forward with the bus improvements, knowing that we also need to improve the connections to the bus and the crossings and the lighting and everything along the corridor. That is a puzzle we're working on, I guess, to try to figure out how we do that. Because if the funding for the other improvements dribble in, it can be hard. So I think there's an overall funding strategy part of this that we'll need to work with our ODOT partners. So again, I mentioned this is going to be cross-disciplinary. Our housing staff have been participating in the Southwest Equitable Development Strategy, and they know about this effort. They're already out there working, actually, with seeking housing, as you know. I mentioned that Craig is going to be very helpful in coordination, particularly as part of this is to, part of Metro's goal is to have some pilot project initiatives like they did for Southwest Corridor. Office of Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement will also be key because we will be out talking to a lot of the same folks and we'll need to be working on some coordination. And then you'll have us on the land use and transportation side. Any more questions on this one? It's ambitious, but